I have some conflicting information, which needs verification. The letter J in English was not invented until 15th century. So if Greek pronunciation of Jesus would be Jesus or Isus, but both of these doesn't make sense to me. Why? Because his Jewish, Aramaic, Hebrew name was Yeshua, by which he was called when he walked and talked on this earth for 33 years. So unless someone is telling me that after his death and resurrection, somewhere in the 3rd, 4th century, 300 to 400 years later, his name was changed. The importance of name, and again correct name or original name to address, was very respectable subject even 100 years ago. How much more important would it be in the time of Yeshua, which means salvation? In Chinese till today, it is pronounced as Yi So, in Hindi Isu, and so in Japanese, Korean, it is very close to the original Yeshua. Why in English as Jesus? I think someone will have to write a thesis by researching back King James Bible of 1611, then going back to Martin Luther Monk, 11th century, and even backwards, if there are any records of King Constantine. The short answer, his real name was Yeshua. His birth date is certainly more confusing, definitely not December or anywhere close to 25th, but as Charles Jameson mentioned, somewhere in July-August period. Why is the birth date even celebrated by millions of Christians? This is a huge problem, and need to be understood by the ones who are trying to find out the answer, why? Why would a pagan festival, which was celebrated 1,000 years before Yeshua, would suddenly be redeemed and integrated into Christian and called Christmas? This is very serious question, and the one who is true believer must ask to find the truth and refrain from following or celebrating this day. Check out in the New Testament if there was even any mention by 12 disciples or anyone celebrating his birth after his body was taken up. Also, if Yeshua is alive and in spirit being, then why celebrate his birthday like mortal being to start with? He was Aramaic. The true king of the tribe of Judah, all of Israel, and indeed the king of all kings of the entire world. His name was Yeshua. Jesus is, in all probability, a Roman insult. He was born at precisely 21 minutes after midnight on what we would now call the 11th of September 3rd BC. If you take the modern international time zones into account, then that means he was born at 5:21 p.m. New York time. And that is precisely the time that WTC-7 disintegrated as part of a huge Masonic, satanic psyop designed to usher in Albert Pike's Third World War between Zionists and their proxies and Islam. The resulting mass migration, Islamic refugee movement has caused a greater and greater hegemony, which, in turn, is helping to create the conditions for Lucifer's New World Order, a globalized utopia or dystopia, depending which side of the fence you're on, with a single, unified government of an uber-rich and savage few over a vastly diminished and transhuman population of slaves. For confirmation, read the Book of Revelation, watched The Wizard of Oz, and The Matrix. Also look up the Georgia Guidestones. His name was Jesus. However you want to anglicize it. Jesus, Joshua, Yeshua, whatever. It's a Hebrew name, so you can transliterate it however you want. By ancient custom, he probably would have been known as Ben Joseph, again anglicized, which means son of Joseph. Very interestingly, he is referred to in the Gospels as the son of Mary, also as of Nazareth or the Nazarene. It seems fair to call him how the Gospels call him, since they are by far our best source of information about him. As for his exact birth date, we can't be sure. Anyone who says they can is full of baloney, or baloney, however you anglicize it. The medieval monk who came up with our year system placed year 1 at what he thought was Jesus's birth year. Scholars in the 1990s thought he was off by 4 to 7 years and that Jesus was born in 7 to 4 BC. Some argue that he was indeed born in AD 1. Here's a fun overview of what little we know. As for what month per day, we know even less. Some people argue that it was spring since the shepherds were out in the fields, but that's really not accurate. Shepherds can be in the fields in Palestine in any season, and to make a definite pronouncement based on a generality is shaky at best. The choice of December 25th is not as arbitrary or pagan-based as many internet scholars like to proclaim. How did the church arrive at December 25th? Well, we know Jesus was 6 months younger than John the Baptist. And at the time John was conceived, his father was serving his round in the temple. Based on his tribe, we think that was late September, which is why we celebrate the feast of John the Baptist on June 24th, yes, plus a day. Add 6 months and you get December 25th. It is possible that when December 25th was first set, March 25th corresponded to the day of Christ's crucifixion or resurrection, and therefore ancients posited that his Annunciation, death or Annunciation, resurrection dates should be celebrated on the same day. Possible.